What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics Collectibles, and yes, we are back with another video. So I had a popular response to my last undervalued comics video, and I've been asked by a bunch of people out there in the community to kind of do another one. So that's what we're here for today. Before we get started into that undervalued comics part 2, I'm going to ask you guys, if you aren't a current subscriber of the channel, I want you to go ahead and click that subscribe button for me. I want you to smash that like button. Of course, I want you to turn on the notification bell so you guys get notified when I actually post some videos. If you guys don't know when I post videos, it's usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thursdays is the Hot 10 breakdown of the week, and sometimes I give you guys a little bit something extra, and you might get some extra coming in next week, so look for that video as well. So, like I said, a lot of people out there in the community asking me to do another undervalued comics list that you would still buy. So that's the key words there, right, guys? Books that you would still buy. So if you haven't checked out that first list, there is like 40-something books on that list, so it's a huge one. So I suggest you go ahead, stop this video, go ahead and check out that list first, because there are a lot of great books still available at some decent prices. So the one thing that I did notice when I tried to compile this list, there are not many books left after that list that I first put out that I would still buy here at these prices. So I've actually narrowed it down to 7 books right now. Isn't that crazy? I went from 40-something to 7. 7 books that I think after that first list that can still be had, that I still think will go up a significant amount over the next year and a half or so. And now a lot of these books are long-term books as well, stuff that I want to hold for the long term. A lot of the bigger books you see on this list, they are long-term holds. The smaller ones, that you can hold them for a while if you want to sell them, that's great, no problem. But the big keys, the 3,000 and plus, I'm holding on to those books for a long period of time, and selling them way out in the future. So keep that in mind, all right? So we're going to start like I did with the last video. I'm going to give you like a price range. So I'm going to start from high to low on this video, considering there's only 7 books. So we're going to go highest price first to the lowest price last. So let's get started. The first book I'm going to recommend to you guys is a copy of Avengers Number 1. Now, you guys are going to ask me, why is this book on this list? This book has really not appreciated fast enough, even though it is the first appearance of the Avengers together, and a lot of these characters are not going to be used going forward in the MCU. I still just feel like this book is such an important book and is really not that expensive. Avengers Number 1, you could have right now in a 2.0 grade for $3,250 for anybody who wants to spend that kind of money on a big Silver Age key. Now, I know spending that kind of money is not always for everyone out there, so keep that in mind. But those who can throw around this kind of cash and you want to buy a book that is severely undervalued, it is this one, Avengers Number 1. And we may see, as the MCU moves away from these characters, that this book starts to drop. But over the long term, I still think this is a great buy, because nobody really talks about this book when they talk about the Avengers. They talk about the individual first appearances. This is the first book together as a team, and you never know. 10 years down the line, we may see them bring back all these characters for one final movie. That's what I think is going to happen. That's what I think they're banking on. Regardless, I still think Avengers Number 1 is a great buy. Next on my list is a book I probably should have considered on the first time around, but for some reason I didn't. I don't know how I missed it. It is Strange Tales number 110, the first appearance of Doctor Strange. Now, I do talk about the Doctor Strange number 169, where it converts over to 169 a lot. That is the better cover in my opinion, but you can't not go without the first appearance of Doctor Strange. Right now, you can get a 2.0 copy at $2,300. Now, you could have had this book forever for really under $1,000, and all of a sudden, over the last year, it is really starting to get pricey. But over the long term, I've talked about Daredevil number 1, and that was on the last week, how it doesn't even compare to like the bigger giant Marvel keys from that era, like the AF-15s, the Hulk ones, Tales of Spencer 9 in price. However, this one is just like that. It is even less expensive than Daredevil number 1. I don't know why. Maybe because the cover is not the greatest. A lot of the Strange Tale covers, they're kind of blah. They're not the greatest. I enjoy them, but they're not like spectacular covers like you get with like the AF-15, stuff like that. It is still really inexpensive for the first appearance of a gigantic character such as Doctor Strange. And I think Doctor Strange is going to hang around in the MCU for quite a while. So to me, if you could pick this one up in around this range, a 2.0, 2.5 grade, I think that's the best bang for your buck. The next one on my list is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 14, the first appearance of the Green Goblin. It is crazy how inexpensive this book is. Now, when I give you the price, you're like, wow, that's a lot of money. But to me, a giant ASM key that is only worth this amount of money, I'm thinking, that's crazy. Like, that is a major character. One of the most important villains in Spider-Man lore, if not the most important. There are so many great books featuring the Green Goblin that how can we not snatch up his first appearance for this price? And a copy at a 2.0 can still be had for $1,299, which to me is a steal. You can get a 2.0 copy, and I know people are going to say that's a really low grade, but you know what? If you can find a copy that's actually looks great for a 2.0, and there are some out there, that's what I'd be buying right now. For $1,299, to me, that's a steal. This is a huge character. We all know what Green Goblin outside of Spider-Man goes on to become, right? He fills in other roles in some teams. Who knows where Norman Osborn is going to go? He's still the Green Goblin. He's the greatest Spider-Man character of all time. I'm not sure if the MCU is going to do another Green Goblin down the road. They may go in that storyline. They may not. Regardless, this is a long-term hold. You know down the line this book is going to be worth 3-4 times the amount 20 years down the line. So to me, this is way undervalued, and I'd be definitely picking it up if you guys are interested. The next one on my list is another Amazing Spider-Man key. It is a copy of number 121, The Death of Gwen Stacy. Now, people have told me before that, you know what, they've done Gwen Stacy in the Sonyverse, a couple of times already, so Marvel may not go on that route, and they might not. But regardless, you look at this cover and how this is one of the most classic John Romita covers there is. Another yellow one as well. Stay tuned for one of my videos where I go over the top yellow cover comics out there because it is one of my favorite genres. Either way, you can still have an 8.0 copy of The Death of Gwen Stacy and this beautiful cover for $750, which to me is also a steal. If you haven't checked out one of my recent haul videos, I picked up a raw copy from one of my LCSs for about $400. It is my second copy, so to me, you could see what I am buying as well. Still a well undervalued key in my opinion, and a beautiful cover, and John Romita is my favorite artist. If they ever decide to bring Gwen Stacy into the MCU or into like the Sonyverse again, this book is going to pop because eventually she's going to die off. That's just the way the storyline goes. And maybe from another universe, we'll eventually get the Spider-Gwen as well. But this is a book that is severely undervalued and number 4 on my part 2 list. How can we talk about that book without getting into the next book on my list? It is Amazing Spider-Man number 122, The Death of the Green Goblin. Now, we all know the storyline. Spider-Man gets pissed off because, Green Goblin takes Gwen Stacy's away from him, goes nuts, kills the Green Goblin. And you can have an 8.0 also with this copy for only $550. To me, it's criminal for this amazing storyline. This is one of my favorite covers as well from this time frame of Amazing Spider-Man keys. Awesome, beautiful cover for only $500 and change, guys. I am all over that. Again, another important storyline in the Spider-Man lore. This book is guaranteed to go up into the long term, right, guys? If you do not own a copy of this book, that is why it's undervalued. Again, I'm not going to buy this book right now and sell it off in 6 months. You're not going to get any monetary value doing this stuff. These books that I always bring up when I do these undervalued lists are for the long term. So these are for serious comic collectors out there who are willing to hold through the ups and downs for the long term. This book is on the list. Definitely worth it. The next one is a book that I probably should have put on the first list, but for some reason I didn't as well. It is a smaller key, but still an important one. It is a copy of Marvel Spotlight number 32, the first appearance of Jessica Drew as Spider-Woman. Yes, another spider-related key. It is only a matter of time, and of course there are rumors out there that she is going to appear in one of these Sony Spider-Verse films. Once she does, this book is going to go through the roof. So here's a spec for you. It's still relatively cheap at high grade. A 9.0 right now you could have for $650. To me, I am all over that book. I bought my couple of copies that I have for like $100 a couple of years ago each. They're also in high grade. I am so happy I picked those up when I did, but I still think this book is severely undervalued. Now, do I think Jessica Drew is going to be important going forward in the MCU or the Sonyverse? It's not going to be huge, but she is going to appear. They're talking about doing like a Black Cat movie with also, Spider Women in it as well. So who knows where they're going to go with that. But once she does appear on the screen, this book is going to go higher. So yes, in the short term, I think it's a good buy. And definitely in the long term, I think it's a good buy. And the last book on my list, again, another book I probably should have put on the first one, but I had a different one on it. It is a copy of Secret Wars number 8, The Origin of the Black Costume. Now, everybody goes back and forth. What's the more important book, ASM 252 or Secret Wars number 8, The Origin? 252, I think, is the money buy, right? I always talk about the money book, the book in a series of books that are important. What's the one that's going to probably go up the first? And it's going to be Amazing Spider-Man 252. That was on the first part 1 of this list. This is still an important book. I don't know what route they're going to go in the MCU when Secret Wars does happen. And eventually, guys, it is going to happen. Right now, this book has gotten hot over the past year. Still undervalued in super high grade. A 9.6 can run you about $350 only, all right? Again, if you can afford the 9.8, I'm going to say go for the 9.8 because there are a lot less copies of the 9.8 out there than are of the 9.6. But regardless, a 9 stick is still an awesome grade of this book. I actually have a 9.2 graded copy, and I have 2 raw copies in my collection. Both I picked up about a year ago. The 9.2 I've had in my collection for a really long time. But regardless, again, I don't know how they're going to usher in the origin of the black costume in the MCU. We saw a little bit piece of, the Venom symbiote stay behind in Spider-Man No Way Home. That's probably how we're going to get it, but who knows? So this is the books that I think that are still undervalued out there right now that I'd probably be picking up sooner rather than later. Like I said, if you haven't checked out the part 1 of the undervalued series that I did, make sure you go back and check out those books because those are a lot of the keys out there that I'd be buying right now. The key here to take away, guys, about this list is there is not a lot of stuff right now that I think for the long term I'd be buying because I think we are going to get a dip as, the market starts to taper in a little bit. So keep that in mind. It doesn't always hurt to buy what you love. That's the main thing we take away. If you love a book and you want to pay fair market value for it or even a little bit over, that's always okay because you really want that book. But we're talking about books that we think are going to go up severely in price over the next year, couple of years, or even longer. So keep that in mind. With that said, guys, this is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching. If you haven't checked out some of my latest videos, make sure you click on these links and check them out. With that said, I will talk to you guys soon.